Hello and welcome to Motherhood Made Magic, a podcast for the women who won't wait until their kids are grown to follow their dreams. I'm your host, Anna Cusack, an author, postpartum doula, exercise physiologist, and mum. While I was writing my first book, I had many uplifting, encouraging, and inspiring conversations with women and mothers who were doing just as I was, living their passion in business, art, sports, and more, while also loving motherhood. This podcast exists to bring these conversations out from behind closed doors and bust the myth that a good mother must always put her own needs last. I'll be bringing you interviews with exceptional women, plus reflections on my own experience of motherhood. Thanks for joining me on the wild ride that is being a mum. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Motherhood Made Magic podcast. Today we have Kirra Rose joining us, and Kirra is someone that I find particularly inspiring. Those women that you feel they have just so much wisdom to offer you, and then you realize that they're actually younger than you and you have a little bit of a freak out. That's pretty much Kirra to me. So Kirra is a mother to two little girls who inspire passion in her to pave a path of embodied feminine leadership. Oh, so juicy. So they may too experience life with full expansion, passion, and fulfilment as women in the world. Kirra is an astrologer who specializes in feminine archetypes and sacred women's work. She works closely with the moon to create abundance and fulfillment in her own life by managing her energy and giving space for all parts of herself to coexist. The mother, lover, inspired leader, universal child wildfire, and student of life. What an intro. Kirra, welcome.
Thank you, Anna. I've so been looking forward to this. It feels so nurturing to be talking about life and motherhood as it coexists.
And the magic that coexists with that. So I was really hoping that we might be able to start off just by hearing a little bit about you and how this concept of motherhood made magic and weaving magic into our lives really resonates with your experience and with the work that you do as well.
Yeah. So I feel like becoming a mother really inspired so much creativity within me. And so firstly, becoming a mother, I feel, was really this initiatory spark that brought me to the work that I'm actually doing. So I see them as being very intertwined. And so particularly when I became a mother, before I was a mother, I was already an astrologer and really studying about universal wisdom and really kind of paving that path. And then when I became a mother, it inspired me to learn about sacred feminine mystery. And I started to facilitate women's circles and really just deepened this path of awakening within me and really inspired so much passion for what I see as this being my soul's calling and work in the world. So alongside that, the entire time I have been juggling motherhood and finding ways for my soul work to coexist with my motherhood, which has been a real roller coaster ride. This concept,
and it's interesting you make that point, really, because they are alongside each other, and a lot of the time we can feel like our children are almost perhaps not our children, but motherhood as the cultural construct as it is kind of stifling our ability to access that spiritual path that we might be on.
So I feel like a big part of my journey has been in giving myself permission to have big dreams, right? And I think that that's really what your message represents to me. Motherhood Made Magic being the podcast for women who won't wait to follow their dreams. I love that. And yeah, I've had to give myself that permission and be exposed to people like you and like Sophie Brock and other mothers who are also doing their work in the world to expand that belief that is possible for me as well.
Yeah. And we are lucky enough to share a couple of mentors like Dr. Sophie Brock, who's really doing some wonderful work in this space too. So you've mentioned two things there that I just love if you dig into a little more. So you've said about motherhood and following your dreams as a path that's happening together. And I think for our generation, a lot of women are sort of put on this path of study and career and following career-based dreams first, and then integrating motherhood into that identity somehow. But I believe you actually became a mother reasonably young. Is that right?
Yeah, so I was 20 when I became a mum, and when I was younger, I had big dreams of going to university and doing all kinds of getting all kinds of certificates and establishing myself in the world and buying a house and getting married and doing all the things that society tells you need to do to have safety and security as a mother. But I very much did that backwards. Well, I became a mother when I was 20, and honestly, it was the biggest gift to find myself. I feel like becoming a mother put me on this path of finding out who I really was. And because you have such limited time when you become a mother, I became so much more focused on what energized me, because the time that I did have was so much more precious. So I feel like it put me through this process of refinery and really being able to discover what was true for me and what lit me up, what, really fueled those flames within me. Because and that's been a thread that's been throughout my whole journey with doing my work in the world and really working out what worked for me, because I am noticing what I'm motivated by, and that becomes so important when you're running on limited sleep and limited free time. So now my work is like this symbiotic relationship where it's evolving to energize me rather than drain me.
Yes, and I really appreciate that you're able to bring some of that energy to even things like outside your home into your social media content, for example, that I get to share from interstate, to feel that, that abundance and that overflowing energy because you do that work on yourself.
Thank you.
So beyond reading my horoscope in the paper, astrology is not something that I'm super familiar with. I generally know about where the moon's up to in its 28-day cycle, but perhaps you could explain a little bit more about how the astrology and the women's work and the work that you do for yourself and your family all tie in together.
That's a great question. Well, I have a very extensive understanding and study of astrology. So it has really helped me, particularly when becoming a mother, because I feel like that initiated me more into my feminine energy and into simplicity in a sense. So following the moon cycle in particular has been something that allows me to have a greater sense of ease and flow in the structure really of my daily life and my monthly life as per the moon cycle. So other people could correlate this in their own experience of their menstrual cycle, but because I've been pregnant and breastfeeding for the last 4 years, I have not had that menstrual cycle to go off. So this is where the cycle of the moon and my understanding of the energetics of planetary movement, and as they move around the zodiac, the constellations and the zodiac signs, and how that then impacts me based on where that's moving in my own birth chart, which is like a screenshot of the sky and the planetary alignments when you are born. So following along with this, as opposed to this internal compass that is the menstrual cycle for many women, has given me a structure that I can kind of align and manage my energy by, which is really the foundation of how I do my work in the world. That's how I do my self-care. For instance, right now it's a few days after the new moon. So in this week, the light of the moon is increasing, and so energy is increasing, and this is the busiest week of my month. And it happens by coincidence, so it seems, but also it just happens that this is when I am bursting with the most energy, and I can predict that. And my activities seem to align around that. Now, in the last week of the lunar cycle, there's no way that I'm going to be planning stuff, interviews and things to do back to back, because I'm not going to have the energy for it. And I honor that. And I honor that that is a time in my month that is for me to reflect and integrate and to deepen in my healing journey and process, so that I can reemerge in this part of the lunar cycle with an abundance of energy. So I really live by that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it answers it beautifully. What I'm wondering is, I can see how you can sort of schedule things differently through the month, different work commitments. How does this work when you have two small children whose needs are reasonably constant regardless of what phase the moon is in, where your energy is at?
Yeah, great question. So I think the biggest piece within that is my giving myself permission. So if I have this awareness that I really truly live by, and I'm teaching and wanting to share with other women about their energy too, it gives me permission, particularly when the moon is in a less energetic phase, to have less expectations of myself and to have less expectations of my children. So I think it really comes into the way that I think and the beliefs that I have and the expectation that I have of myself as a mother. I'm still going through the intensity, and I'm still going through a lot of emotions and all of the normal things that people are going through with small children. But yeah, it's like I'm giving myself permission to be in whatever energetic state I am in at that time. And more practically, I schedule a cleaner to come to my house in the last 2 weeks of the moon cycle, which helps with parenting and the domestic load.
Okay, so I can totally see how a monthly cleaner then, rather than a fortnightly cleaner, would work perfectly based on your energy levels. That's just spot on system. So one thing that I would love to ask you with your astrological and womanly knowledge is around, I read a book by Francesca Naish, I think it's called Natural Fertility, when I was on my own fertility journey. And she was referring to some information that suggested that we have our main ovulation around day 13 to 14 of our 28, 29 day cycle, but we also have a possible spontaneous ovulation if we're particularly if we're in sync with what the moon is up to at the time when the moon is in its same point of the cycle as it was when we were born. So for example, I was born when the moon was 5 days before the full moon. And so I would have the most potential for an extra ovulation when the moon in the sky is 5 days before the full moon. Now, does that make sense? And is that anything that you have come across?
Yeah, I've definitely heard stories from women who have said that they have conceived on a spontaneous ovulation that was at the exact moon phase of when they were born. I've heard that from maybe 5 women. So it's definitely a thing.
Wow, okay. And so it's not just woo-woo.
No, it's definitely a thing. So, and what I kind of make of that from my spiritual, philosophical perspective on it is that for that to be, it's like when you're born is your creative potential. And so what I work with the moon with is that the moon is our creativity. It correlates to the womb. The womb and the moon are creativity and bringing projects and passions and humans to life. So the moon within all of us, where the moon was when we were all born, it's like a creative blueprint. So it makes sense that that is a heightened time when the moon is in the same cycle as it was when we were born. It makes sense that that would be a heightened time for that cycle of creativity to be inspired and sparked.
Thank you for that explanation. And I think I can hear that you might have your bubba with you. Is that right?
Yes, Effie. Effie is here. She's my 10-month-old baby. She's just started waving at the screen.
Oh, hey,
We're
bubba.
talking about. Hi. She's going to go to sleep. She's planning on going to sleep breastfeeding, but she's just pulled my headphones out and she's waving.
Which does make recording a podcast interview a little tricky, but I wanted to give our listeners a bit of insight because, a lot of the time we are mums working with and around our children, and we don't have to keep making that invisible all the time. So thank you for introducing us to little Miss Effie. And if she lets you, talk through your ideas a little bit here, I would love to hear about plans you've got for your book, because I heard a little rumor that while I'm editing mine, you're starting to write yours. So I would love to hear about it.
Yes. I'm very much at the beginning phases of writing the book. So it's like any creation that you nurture, it feels like it's very much in that nurturing stage. So to kind of talk about it feels a little bit like it's a little bit taboo. It's like the first trimester of pregnancy. No one's talking about it. But
they're keeping it all under wraps.
Yeah, exactly. Because what if something happens, and what if it doesn't come to be? But I do very much have this huge desire to birth this book, and it's all about the moon cycle and how that correlates to the menstrual cycle, and I'm writing it for young girls. I'm writing it for the young girl that I was when I first started to bleed, and I did not have this wisdom. So it's all about the magic and the mystery of the womb and the sacred feminine, and how to really create a relationship with that cycle so that you have got the most empowering creativity that you are blossoming and blooming into the world.
So you can see how your womanliness is really your creative power and not something to be ashamed of having that bleed.
Yeah, absolutely. And I see this book in particular is like the foundation of reclaiming feminine energy that I see. So for me, it's my personal journey that I have self-initiated through understanding about the cycle of the moon and how that relates to myself as a cyclic being whose needs and desires change constantly. And pulling in everything that I have learned around managing my energy and really empowering myself to continue being a creative being, even when I feel like at sometimes I'm at capacity. And really how metaphorically this is the journey of the moon's cycle. We grow, we think we're getting to capacity. Come back. She's trying to climb on the bed now. So we grow with these passions and these ideas and this energy, and then we get to a stage of potentially feeling like we're at capacity and we have to expand our edges. We have to release something, whether it's releasing a belief that we have, releasing some project that we might have started that isn't really in alignment with our truth, whether it's releasing some expectation we have on ourselves, or literally releasing and surrendering to the earth for nourishment and rest. And then letting things go, this cycle of letting things go so that newness can be moved through, so that fresh energy and fresh ideas can be moved through our wombs and through our bodies and out into the world.
And what a gift if we could know these things from the start, from puberty, not just come to them later.
Absolutely.
And have to do the reclaiming. Like, it's not a personal reclaiming if it's what you've always known. So it's just going to be a beautiful gift to the world, Kirra. Thank you. So I think that might almost bring us to the last question that I wanted to ask you, which is if there was one thing that you would love to tell the mothers listening to this podcast, what would it be? What do we need to know?
Yeah, don't give up on your dreams and don't martyr yourself for your children, because you being energized, being vibrant and fulfilled is the best gift that you can give to your children. To be with them with an overflowing cup is far more important than it is to stretch yourself thin and to be getting crumbs of, what fills you up as a sacrifice for them. And I would say find what energizes you and try on different hats. Work out what works for you. And when you find something that energizes you and that gives you that elixir of passion and creativity, go with that and allow it to morph, allow it to change, allow yourself to follow the breadcrumbs and really keep expanding and keep growing rather than collapsing around the limited capacity that motherhood kind of faces you with. Allow yourself to find and be kind of like a scientist, finding what energizes you and what lights you up and what fills you, because that is the greatest gift that you can give your children, and that is what will set you on a path of creative splendor and ecstasy.
Splendor indeed. Kirra, thank you for that little pep talk. And I just love having your pep talk in my feed every day. So where is it that we can find you to get a taste of this wondrous love that you exude every day?
Oh, thank you. On Instagram, you can find me at Wild Kirra Rose, and it's the same on Facebook, or you can add me as a friend at Kirra Rose. I love to connect with people and really share my own authenticity and create relationships with people on social media. So if you want to add me as a friend, I would love that.
Cool. Thank you. And you do some things around, like you mentioned before, about knowing your own birth chart and your children's birth chart and how that helps. Is that a service that you can do for other people?
Yeah, absolutely. So I offer mother or parent-child readings, astrology readings, where I look at the birth chart, which is where the planets were at the time of your birth. So I look at the birth chart of the parent and the child, and it's really fun. And I really tap into the kind of soul connection that you have with one another, and how you're here inevitably to help each other to grow and expand. So that's a service that I provide. And I also in the past have done some programs around mothering with the moon and aligning your energy around the moon cycle, as I do. But coming up, well, I'm writing the book at the moment, so I think I'm focusing on just doing readings for a time. So I offer a package where you can be in Voxer with me for a month, and we do Zoom calls every week to really go through the astrological dynamics within your household and your family, between whoever is within that intimate family, and really getting to know each other on a more soul deep level and tapping into what the lessons are and ways that you can help each other grow. I offer a coaching package around that.
Thank you, Kirra. That sounds really cool. So that was regular Zoom calls, and then Voxer, for those who don't know, is like a voice messaging app where you can just leave each other voice clips or text messages or photos, and you just keep in contact that way to nut out any things that you want guidance with.
Yeah, totes. Thanks for that, Anna.
That's all good. All right. Thanks so much for being here with me today, Kirra. And I will drop all your links into our show notes for those people who want to follow along with you.
Thank you, Anna. Such a blessing. I hope you have a gorgeous day.
Yes, you too. Okay, bye.
Thanks for joining me on this episode of Motherhood Made Magic. If you'd like to find out more about what I do, you can head to my website, www.annacusack.com.au. Follow me on Facebook, Anna Cusack, Complete Mama Support, and on Instagram as @AnnaCusack Postpartum. I look forward to bringing you another brilliant chat next time.